Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the Living in Oneness Experience Podcast. This is Cindy, and back by popular demand is my friend Cindy. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Cindy.
We had a conversation a number of months ago about the pause. And so many people had such wonderful things to say about the time we spent together that we wanted to do it again. We're not, and see what happens and see what arises. So because this is a podcast, and because I have a sense that you may be listening while you're taking a walk or driving, or I listen to my podcasts while I'm cleaning the kitchen, I'm not going to ask you to physically close your eyes, but I would like you, wherever you are, to see whether or not you can allow my voice to fill your mind. Crazy concept, I know, but I imagine that it's possible that a second ago or 30 seconds ago, something pulled you into curiosity and a desire to listen to us. And you might have just pressed a button, and perhaps it was playing in the background and there was a to-do list flooding through your mind, or your eyes were darting around and taking in a whole bunch of things without focusing on anything in specific. And right now, just for now, whether you're walking or sitting or cleaning or driving, why not let this voice fill your space without allowing you to take your attention away from anything else? A few days ago, I was listening to a friend's contemplation. She was only speaking for 2 minutes. And at the end of it, I realized that I had not heard a word, not a single word. I was sitting in front of her. I was looking at her. She didn't know that I wasn't taking in the message. But when she was done, and she said, Danke, my German friend, I did not remember a single thing she said. And here's the thing. Because of all the work, because of saying yes to this work over and over and over again, what I knew immediately, one, I was not guilty, which was gorgeous. And two, I had a strong sense that the conditioned mind that didn't want me to shift had pushed me out of that moment. And so I took a breath, I looked at her, said, thank you, can you read it again? And what was so interesting was that the second time she read it, I heard every word, but I could feel the inner resistance to shifting into this higher vibrational state, which is what the Living in Oneness experience is, that I took some notes. And I'm glad I did, because a few hours later, I was telling somebody about the experience and I went to share the learning and I couldn't remember again. Our conditioning, it's not all that strong, but it's strong enough and it feels like it's who we are, but it's not. And when we meet it with consciousness and we say, no, I'm ready to rise in consciousness. I'm ready to fully embody and experience the truth and the beauty of who I am. And you're willing to stand in that. Then it happens. You will receive whatever you request. So in that space, with that intention, you've been called here. Now you get to choose how much of yourself you're going to bring to this conversation that we're going to have about the Borderland now. I highly recommend you give us all of it. Yeah. And you'll be able to listen again. So if 40 minutes from now you're like, oh, what just happened? Go ahead and hit the rewind button. And then take some notes, review them, decide whether or not you want to embrace what is being shared here. And when you say yes to the truth sets you free. With all of that said, my beloved friend Cindy, hello and welcome. And we all want to know, number one, what is the Borderland?
Ooh, thank you, Cindy. And that was a beautiful introduction. The Borderland. Well, the Borderland is a beautiful practice that is in the Course in Miracles. And it is a space or a meeting place where we bring two-ness together, our duality, concerns, illusions are brought to the altar of truth, they say. And I love this, and it's a space. So, I'm visual. So for those of you listening, I will try to describe the visual, but you can go back and see. Just as I did with the pause on the first podcast, what I see is the altar of truth. And when you read and understand, the altar of truth is the awakened mind. And I've got my hand up in this still space. It's the Holy Spirit, it's awareness. The other altar in this Borderland is one of illusions. And my hand is now waving and making motion. And these are the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, the past, the future, our beliefs, our personal self, time, space, our worries, our concerns, our blocks. There you go. It's pretty vibrant. And we tend to have our attention over here on this instead of this. And the beautiful Borderland brings the two side by side. But there's a space here. Today I've created a space. And that space is the meeting place where they come in side by side. And we're going to be bringing them together in the Borderland so that only the truth is left behind and then leads the way. They call it a gateway or a doorway to the world where it's not attached to the world. So it's kind of like in the world, but not of the world. This space, this Borderland, this space between my two hands is where you put your attention on being still, quiet, pause, reside and abide as presence. And you allow this situation, conflict, two-ness, just to be there. And you don't judge it, lean into it, give it attention, or get involved with it. Because the altar of truth is the oneness. It's the true nature or essence beyond name and form. So this gateway called the Borderland, we sit there and we bring the illusions to the altar, this space of grace, before the gate, as they call it, of heaven, or the gate of oneness. And when that's brought into the border of truth, and you allow that light, that divine intelligence to shine on it, in this stillness, it opens and we go in and we're initiated into the great mystery of what lies beyond, which is oneness. And in here is the answer. And it comes through. The Borderland. Oneness has no complexity, no conflict. It just is.
So as I was listening, number one, I often share with people the kiss. So I was thinking about that, where you bring your awareness to the edge of whatever's going on. It works really well with physical pain, right?
Yes.
Or a problem or whatever. And you gently kiss it with awareness.
Oh.
That so you don't try to penetrate it. It's not what you described, right? There's no force in the borderland. There's no force in the space. It's just a matter of seeing a problem. Oh, I like this.
Yeah.
All of our thoughts and being willing to step away for a moment and allow ourselves to sink into this other space. And kissing, it's like with awareness at any given time, you could just kiss this.
Yeah. Just beautiful, beautiful
Absolutely.
space.
Yeah. The other thing is that I am understanding the gorgeous beauty and the continuation, like I'm being brought right back to our first conversation about the pause, because there we were just talking about stopping, even for a minute, right? Whatever the problem is, my friend Wynn, I think Wynn will probably listen at one time or another. So I love you, Wynn. It's with her beautiful voice. I remember her saying the very hardest process we're ever invited to practice in all this work we're doing is the process of doing nothing, which is the pause. But here, this description, when we're doing nothing, it's still very easy for the mind to think it's supposed to be doing something, and the doing nothing is, doing nothing is not sitting on the couch and binge watching Netflix, right? It's hanging out in the borderland, and we didn't really describe that the last time, right? We invited people to practice doing nothing, even for a moment. But now what we get to do is talk about what happens in the pause, in this space where we still have this belief or clinging to problems, and yet we practice more and more and more hanging out in the space that moves around and in and through all the problems.
Yes.
Would you go ahead?
It's this beautiful stillness that's reached where your attention is more on the silence. It's more on the stillness. And the other is it's just absorbed in this beautiful light of the stillness. It's like this column of light, of stillness, the borderland. And this presence of light, which is the truth of what we are, and connecting to the divine in this stillness, it just starts to shine on it, on the events. And you have this distilling or dispelling or dissolving, and you just rest there. And in this stilling, and this beautiful stillness is this knowing. And it's also called in the Course in Miracles, the journey's end. The journey's end to me is that only my stillness then goes past this gate and into oneness, where oneness resides. And in there, it is extremely clear. Everything else drops away, and the answer reveals itself. The idea comes forward. It may not come immediately, but all I do is practice that stillness whenever the event chaos, confusion, or situation of another or something or an event in the world, I keep placing it in the borderland, placing myself in the borderland, and let it surrender. And then it comes forward.
I'd love to speak for just a few minutes, and then I'm going to invite you to give us some specific examples of how this works. But I am inspired before I do that to tell everyone who's listening that what we're talking about we're not talking about something that you wait for when you're sitting on the couch necessarily. So even right now, if you're driving, if you're walking, if you're sitting and just listening, if you're cleaning your kitchen, if you're watching your grandchildren play, you have enough attention here, perhaps more than you expected here, listening to the Cyndi and Cindy Living in Oneness Experience Podcast. Allow an issue, a problem, a thought loop that has been running even right now in the background, because unless you are in perfect peace, there is I got a problem to solve, or I'm feeling unsafe or unloved or unwanted or not enough kind of loop is running in your experience now. And I invite you in this moment to let it reveal itself. Yeah. Just let it come to the surface. Let it get even a little bit more in your awareness. Let it almost like rise up to the surface. You can almost see its edges, its top, the space in between, and maybe something's clinging to it underneath, another belief that you didn't know you still had, something. I am bad, I'm not safe, tomorrow's going to be worse than today. I don't know what it is. And allow the momentary experience of panic or fear or sadness. It will be only as intense as, it will be no more intense than you can handle. Let's put it that way. So don't be afraid to allow it to fully reveal itself. Just for right now, do not give permission to have it be censored or submersed or hidden. It's such an interesting thing. It's almost as if the only thing we're really in charge of is our willingness to allow the thoughts, the problem, the issue to come to the borderland. And that's all I'm asking you to do right now. You don't even have to pick one. It's already been revealed. I'm sure it has. And allow it to just come up into the light. Kiss it with your awareness. Bring it into the quiet place, still place. And the mind might be telling you, even as you're listening to me, I don't know what she's talking about. Maybe this is something she can do, but I can't. The thing is, you're listening to me. You're here with Cyndi and Cindy in the Living in Oneness Experience Podcast, which means that you can. That the consciousness, the isness, the presence, spaciousness called you into this space not for later, not for your meditation couch, not for when the grandkids go home or the kitchen is clean or you hit your destination and you have time for it. No, no. Right now, let it come to the borderland. Just give your willingness. Watch it. You are perfectly safe in this space, in the stillness. Nothing can touch you. Just letting some beliefs, some ideas, a story come. One of the most beautiful teachings of A Course in Miracles happens in the very, very, very beginning. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. So don't be afraid of letting go of who you are. It isn't possible. Don't be afraid of letting down your guard, your defenses here in the borderland. It isn't possible for the truth of who you are to be hurt, to be damaged. You will never, ever be less than the beautiful, gorgeous truth of who you are. Right here, right now. Let it go. Bring it here. Kiss the problem with your awareness, with your truth. And you don't ever have to leave this space. That's the beauty. We practice it. We consciously practice it. We go unconscious over and over and over again. Then the moment we notice we've gone unconscious, the moment we start believing we are our thoughts or our problems or the pain that may or may not be erupting, the moment we notice that, we're conscious again. We can give our willingness again. And we can permit it to rise into the borderland. It's really that simple. All right, Cindy. So would you like to share how this all works and has been working even as we speak in your life? We'd love to hear your stories.
Yes, I had a beautiful borderland. The borderland has morphed into something even ongoing. It's the truth of living in this world, but not of the world. And shining a light, the God light we are on the experiences. So a few months ago, I had the experience of a family situation of my parents now passed and the family farm being put up for sale. And my siblings as the executors, and not myself, as I live in 2 countries. And I watched my thinking mind come up with all kind of thoughts and emotions and feelings and opinions and beliefs and get very chaotic and stressed and emotional. And then I went into some triggers and habitual patterns of being a bit bossy or OCD. And I just went for a good ride here, being the personal self and my illusions, the gate of the thinking mind and my structured conditions. So I called in the truth. I sat. I brought that illusion, that whole thing. So I wrote some of those thoughts down. I actually put it in my journal so I could look at them. There's my illusions. There they are. And I came into the beautiful altar of truth, my awareness, my awakened mind, the one that knows I am one with God, that I am pure presence, that I am aware. And I abode in and I called in love's presence, and I am love's presence. And I came into the isness of I am. And all of this stuff, which I'll call buying the farm, entered into this space. And side by side, it came in closer and closer. And I just sat with this space and the beauty of knowing I'm truly God, looking at this experience and shining light on it. And there was peace. And I kept coming back to it. Every time I went about my business during the day, and every time one of those illusions around this specific experience came up, I just went right into awareness and the light. And I could feel the dissolving, and I did it over. The times got shorter and shorter and shorter. And then I was reading something, and it came out with this sentence, and it said, property is not as important as people. And that just hit me. Like, and I just started laughing and laughing and laughing. And I went, whoa, thank you. And it hit me in this head, right in the heart. And I expanded in this love, this huge love. And I just laughed at all of this. And it was so beautiful. And every time, because this is an ongoing process, some aspect has been brought up around this situation. And I call it almost like a temptation to go back to the old way of being, of the way I could be in this situation. I feel this incredible light of presence come over me, and I almost giggle and laugh and sparkle, because I've gone through the gate of the borderland into the oneness around this experience. I see love in it, even to the extent where one of my very closest friends, who was a real estate lady, phoned me and said, can I list the farm? And da, da, da. And I calmly heard her go, and she finished. And I said, my sisters have that job. And I am just in peace with whatever happens will transpire perfectly. And I'm not going to get involved or bring it forward. And she went dead silent. She said, you remind me of somebody. And I said, who? She said, my peaceful husband would say the same thing. And that was our conversation. And it anchored just over and over. It's being anchored. And I'll keep you posted on the outcome, but I'm live in the process. And I have so much peace around it.
Chills, like chills. There's something that I want to say it again. I'm sure I've said it, and people that, hang out with me in any of these rooms, they've heard me say it. Every time we show up, every time we come into this space, the work is happening. Doesn't mean we feel it. It doesn't mean that the world around us all of a sudden changes, or even that our experience of the world around us changes in the moment. Sometimes it appears that this body, mind, personality is having a really rough go of it, right? And if you were hanging out in my apartment with me, a fly on the wall, you'd hear me. Hey, God, universe, isness, presence, I don't feel you. I don't see your presence in this experience. This hurts. This friggin' hurts right now. And it feels like me. I'll talk it out loud. And I got to tell you, it's a really good practice. I'll say, every part of me says that this is me. This feels what's real. And I may believe it's real, but I place my faith in you, in the isness, in the peace. And sometimes that works in a moment. Sometimes it takes an hour. When my daughter was at a music festival and I got a message that said something like, Emma's phone and debit card were stolen. Can you cancel her card? And I didn't hear from her for 3 days. I sat in this space and chipped away at it for the better part of 3 days, the mind going nuts. And yet I did not act in the world. I hung out in the borderland and let the mother energy go nuts, go nuts, go nuts, continually stating, I place my faith in truth. I place my faith in the stillness. It may be that if the situation feels loud and crazy and real and true, but in the borderland, there are no stories. In the borderland, what we have are ideas and thoughts and beliefs that come on up and simply dissolve in the light. And when it's gone over and over and over again. Tell me if this is for you too, Cindy. I keep turning around. Something will hit me. Something will happen in my world. And I'll go, oh, last week, last month, last year, that would have really upset me. There's nothing. Sometimes there's a giggle and a laugh. Mostly it's just peace, this open space. Didn't even know it was gone until something that would have pressed it, would have activated it in the world occurred, and nothing here was disturbed. Have you noticed that, Cindy?
I completely notice it. And what you've just beautifully described is what is actually stated in the borderland, that there's no conflict in oneness. We're just one creation, one reality, one truth. And so you've got nothing to decide. There's no choice or conflict. You are just at peace. You're in the oneness of what is.
Yeah. So no matter what the problem is, whether it's small or like any little thing that you would like to see different, any thought that says this has to change before I can be at peace, before I can know what happiness is, before I can stand out as my authentic self in the world, this has to change first. That's the thought. Bring it here. Might as well bring it here now. Right now. Any of it. Just take it here. Bring it here. Kiss it. Here's the other thing, and I could feel it. Tell me if you've experienced this. It's similar to the story that I didn't know I was going to tell until I told it, of listening to my friend read her contemplation. And at the other end of this 2-minute share, realizing I hadn't heard a word. There are defenses within our body-mind programming that attempt to kick us out of the truth. We'll be sitting in this beautiful space, and the voice may very much sound like you saying, you don't have time for this. You got to go do something in the world to fix this. Or it will create a spasm or a pain, or you'll find anger erupting, anything. I feel like they're like landmines that have been stuck in what we believe is us. And when we choose to shift and be more and more and more of the truth of who we are, these landmines go off. And so you don't hear a message in the contemplation, or like the physical pain feels like it's overrunning you, or all of a sudden, at times I get this fatigue that falls over me that almost makes you feel nauseous. They're all things that you can, as soon as you notice, remember our voices, you can say, let's bring that to the borderland too. And then I'll hear Cindy's voice say, you're too tired, go take a nap. But literally bringing something to the borderland is resting in stillness. You don't need any energy. Too tired to do nothing, are you? That's a good one.
And you know what's so beautiful too is you can become this, is like a default now into this stillness. Everything, a trigger to me is almost like automatically puts me in that gap of stillness, the borderland. And I'm even doing it with the war. I'm bringing that in to the borderland of the truth and becoming an ambassador of light. Because we have the power to actually extend this onto others.
I heard, I want to say it was Miranda McPherson. And what she said was, peace is not changing outer circumstances so that the world goes quiet. Peace is God. And somehow what I understood that to mean was, if I want to be part of what blankets this world right now with peace, then I am to stop all fighting against the war. I am to drop all judgment and inner conflict. I'm going to go so far as to say my inner guidance was to notice and be willing to let go of all judgment, all grievances, and be that which is always peaceful. And there was a period at the end of that. I heard that in what you just shared. It was the same thing. It wasn't a problem to solve in my contemplation yesterday. I just found my thinking mind attempting to solve or to figure out what the spiritual message was in something I heard. So it wasn't even a problem in the world to solve. It was simply, I saw something occur on TV, on RuPaul's Drag Race, if you want to know the truth. I watched an exchange on RuPaul's Drag Race, and the thinking mind said, there's something important in that from a spiritual perspective. And then the thinking mind went ahead and got really busy trying to figure out what it was. It was going two-handed, because it's the spiritual ego going, this is important, this is important, this is important, this is important, this is important. And then I took it out to what we're calling the borderlands. And I said, what do I do with this? And I heard clear as day, nothing, leave it alone, rest. And it flew up, it just dropped. Because there's not even any spiritual concepts we have to grasp. There's no real processes we have to learn. There's nothing we have to do. And I feel like saying it again, Cindy, there's nothing we have to put off until tomorrow when we have the time, right?
It's the way we can live. It's the way we live.
It's so interesting. I'm hearing yeah, buts. It's almost as like there's a sense. There's a sense of stories, like almost like stories are coming into this, like we've created this space here and now. You can feel it, right, Cindy? There's a sense that this, Cindy and I, we may only be a couple hours apart physically, but we are in two different countries. There is border patrol standing between me and her at the moment. And yet it feels like we're both here in the borderland, in the stillness, in consciousness, and nothing else matters.
And you gave a perfect example of, I loved your example when you said you got that thought that came through, because it says in this quiet stillness of the borderland that our thoughts are made pure and simply whole, and the reflection of oneness. So your beautiful example just tingled, because that's what happened. Your thoughts that were like that, it was made pure and whole and simple. Be stillness in and know. Be still and know.
A friend has a poster on his wall, and it just says, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still. Well, I'm not done. The first line says, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know. Be still and be still. Be. Bring all your thoughts here. The ones that serve you will remain. The ones that feed conflict will dissolve. If you feel like there's a problem to solve, bring it here. The thoughts tell you you have to do something in the world or else the problem will grow. Bring it here. If you feel victimized, bring it here. If you feel sad, bring it here. If you feel threatened, bring it here. If you feel angry, bring it here. Be still and know. Be still and be. Is there more, Cindy?
I'm just basking in stillness. the borderland, the gateway to oneness, the gate of God, presence, awareness.
So, from Cyndi and Cindy both, thank you so very, very, very much for spending this time with us. I feel very open and humble and blessed to be part of this experience, a part of your experience. Thank you for saying yes to the Awareness Podcasts and this newest edition of the Living in Oneness episode of the Awareness Podcast. Myself and Susan Telford and Jackie Greggs, and Bill Free, we are all so happy to be part of this experience. You'll find a new podcast every Friday, and you'll have access to all the previous ones. And we'd love for you to become a part of our community. From wherever you're listening, the information on how to do that is available. And we're also so much easier to find than you would imagine. And so if you reach out to us with questions, thoughts, comments, really would love to know how this touches you. Would really love to know what else you think you need, all of that. It's amazing how easy you're going to find it to reach any one of us. There's nothing we want to do other than hang out here with you in the peace, in the joy, in the isness. We love you.
Love you. Bye.